Denise LeBlanc is a 46-year-old female who recently moved to Halifax from Saint-Lambert, Quebec, a small suburban town. She acquired a traumatic brain injury falling on ice 6 months ago. Since the accident, Denise has been seeing her family physician, Dr. Dubois, for frequent follow-ups. Denise has also been diagnosed with generalized anxiety and recurring migraines that alter her day-to-day routine. Dr. Dubois referred her to occupational therapy services.
During the initial assessment, Denise met with student occupational therapist Daniel McLeod. She identified that since the injury, she has been unable to return to work as a receptionist at an accounting firm. Additionally, carrying out some of her basic activities of daily living and instrumental activities of daily living have become challenging. Denise also identified some of the following occupational performance issues.
Denise looks after most self-care activities independently. However, the quantity and quality of her sleep has declined as she wakes up in the middle of the night with migraines. She also experiences anxiety while driving, making daily activities such as grocery shopping challenging at times.
Denise also said that she used to be very active and enjoyed running as well as playing golf and tennis. Since her concussion, she has not been participating in any sports or vigorous exercise, as she gets frequent headaches and fatigues quickly due to her lack of sleep. She also used to enjoy reading, watching television, and playing cards with friends, but now these activities give her migraines. She still enjoys taking long walks outside when the weather isn't too cold.
Lastly, Denise mentioned that since her accident, she has not been able to return to work. This is because she is unable to fulfill her job demands as a result of decreased tolerance to computer screens and mobile devices. Regardless, she is hoping to return to work part-time in a few months, but unfortunately, her employer is unaccommodating to her injury, making the transition back more difficult and stressful. The Whoqol-BREF was selected for Denise based on the challenges mentioned during her clinical interview. During the initial interview, Denise expressed limited social supports, as well as symptoms of depression and anxiety. Multiple studies have demonstrated that individuals with less social supports and disability may have lowered quality of life in almost all domains, and that in particular, anxious patients may have lower scores in physical and psychological domains. Quality of life assessments correlate well with outcome measures of concussion, such as Glasgow Coma Scale, and have been frequently used in traumatic brain injury samples to inform occupation-related interventions. The Whoqol-BREF has shown very good responsiveness toward measuring the outcomes of these interventions, including return to work, independence in ADLs, social support, and emotional self-regulation.
Hi Denise, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So since today is our second meeting together, I thought we could start to get the ball rolling with some assessments. So I know that you mentioned last time we met you had some difficulties in a few different areas of your life. So I thought it might be a good idea to use a questionnaire with you. Is that something you'd be interested in hearing a little more about?
Okay.
Okay, so the questionnaire that I was thinking of is called the World Health Organization Quality of Life Questionnaire, brief version. And as the title says, it measures your quality of life. It would only take about 10 minutes to complete. Is that something you'd be okay to do today?
Sure.
Okay. So Denise, before you fill in the actual assessment, there's just a short survey to fill in about you, your gender, date of birth, education, and your general health status. So once you've filled that in, the questionnaire is comprised of 26 questions, and each one uses a scale of 1 to 5. And just keep in mind that each item is in relation just to the past 2 weeks. So for an example here, this question asks, in the past 2 weeks, do you get the kind of support from others that you need? So if you circled 1, that would indicate not at all. And if you circled 5, that would indicate completely. So I'll stay here as long as you need to fill in this questionnaire. And if you don't understand anything, let me know and just take your time. Do you have any questions before you begin?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The WHOQOL-BREF is a 26-item questionnaire that assesses self-reported quality of life across 4 domains: physical health, psychological well-being, social relationships, and environment. Each domain is considered to encompass different facets. For instance, the physical health domain encompasses the following: activities of daily living, dependence on medicinal substances and medical aids, energy and fatigue, mobility, pain and discomfort, sleep and rest, and work capacity. The psychological well-being domain encompasses body image and appearance, negative feelings and positive feelings, self-esteem, spirituality, and personal beliefs, thinking, learning, memory, and concentration. The social relationships domain incorporates personal relationships, social support, and sexual activity. Finally, the environment dimension includes financial resources, freedom, physical safety and security and health, and social care. Home environment, opportunities for acquiring new information and skills, participation in and opportunities for recreation and leisure activities, physical environment such as pollution, noise, traffic, climate, and transport. The client responds according to a 5-point Likert scale, ranging from not at all to completely. The client is asked to think about their perception of quality of life within the past 2 weeks, keeping in mind their standards, hopes, pleasures, and concerns. While the assessment is typically administered by a client self-report, it can be completed by the therapist using a structured interview format if the client is unable to read the questions. To score the questionnaire, the therapist begins by writing down each raw score. Items 3, 4, and 26 on the questionnaire are reverse scored. The questionnaire is divided into 4 domains: physical, psychological, social relations, and environment. For each domain, raw scores are added together, and an overall score domain is then converted to a 0 to 100 scale. Raw scores are converted to transform scores using the following table, which is provided in the assessment manual. The higher the score, the higher the quality of life across that domain. In Denise's case, she scored a raw score of 18 for the physical domain, which then translates to a 38 out of 100. She also received an 11 on both psychological and social relationships quality of life, which equate to 44 out of 100. And finally, she obtained a 31 raw score for environmental domain, which translates to a 75 out of 100.
So Denise, now that you've completed your questionnaire, I've actually scored it for you. I have a copy of the results here for you to look at,
Okay.
And one for myself as well. So I was actually able to draw some helpful conclusions based on your results. I was hoping that we could use these to sort of help with our overall assessment and treatment plan moving forward. So there are 4 major categories of quality of life according to this questionnaire. So for the environment category, you scored a 75 out of 100. To me, what that indicates is that you're mostly satisfied with your physical environment where you live. Would you say that's true?
I would say that's true. I like where I live and I feel safe in my home.
Okay. So the only pieces here that seem to be more problematic have to do with finances, and things like the opportunity to participate in leisure activities and access to transportation. Could you elaborate a little more on these ideas for me?
Well, as I mentioned before, driving is very difficult for me. I get very anxious and I live quite far outside of the city. So if we can find ways to minimize my driving anxiety, it would be very helpful.
Definitely. I think that's an area where we could work together.
Okay. And as far as the finances go, I think that once I return to work, I should be able to afford, all the things that I need in my daily life.
Okay, good to hear. So the other domain I wanted to clarify with you was physical health. So this was actually your lowest score on the questionnaire with a 38 out of 100. And so this has to do with your sleep and energy, daily life activities, and your capacity for work. Could you talk a little bit about that for me?
Well, those all sound like areas I want to improve, so I'm not surprised by the result.
Okay, so that certainly lines up with our original difficulties and goals that we set in our first meeting. Something else that's useful about this assessment is that we can compare your scores now to the scores that you would get after working with me on your goals in a few months. And we can see if there have been any improvements or any sort of changes over those months.
Oh, well, that would be helpful.
So finally, the 2 other domains here are psychological and social relationships. So you've had some moderate scores here. It seems that things seem to be going quite well when it comes to things like self-esteem or positive and negative feelings, concentration, social relationships, and sexual activity. So there is some room for improvement, but overall things seem to be going okay. Would you agree with that?
I mean, yes, I have friends, I have family, I do have a good support system, but as I told you, I just wish I could participate in more activities with my friends and family. And my concentration, it used to be pretty good before the concussion, but since I hit my head, it's really hard to concentrate. And I think it has impacted my self-esteem for sure, and maybe my quality of life. And I'm very anxious to return to work, as you know, and my boss and I do not have a good working relationship right now. So these are all things that I want to improve for sure.
Mm-hmm. I can see how the relationship with your boss would be really difficult for you. But it's useful to see how the symptoms of the concussion are impacting your quality of life.
Definitely.
And I know that one of your goals was actually to return to work part-time, 3 days per week by the beginning of June. Is that correct?
Yes, it was, but I did notice in the questionnaire there were no questions that related directly to work.
Yes, that is true. The questionnaire was sort of more of an evaluation for your capacity for work in terms of your perception of your physical and mental health at the moment. There is, however, a longer, more inclusive version of the questionnaire with 100 questions. And we could use that if moving forward we feel it's necessary to gather some more information. For the purposes of our assessment today, I chose the shorter one because it is quicker, but we can certainly assess the work-related questions moving forward if we need to.
Okay.
So, Denise, how do you feel about the assessment and the information that we've gathered and talked about so far?
I think it's been useful to see, how the symptoms have impacted my quality of life, and I'll be really curious to see how they change over time with the work that we do together.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to working with you a little more. So would you be okay if we met again at the same time next week?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'll see you then. Thanks for your time.
The WHOQOL-BREF assessment tool has typically been administered in clinical healthcare settings. It's been used with samples in many health conditions including stroke, Parkinson's disease, cancer, older adults, arthritis, mood disorders, acquired brain injuries, schizophrenia, and asthma. There are also multiple variations and shortened versions of this tool, such as the specialized HIV scale and spirituality, religiousness, and personal belief scale, making it a desirable go-to quality of life assessment tool. There are no normative values for the WHOQOL-BREF, as an individual's scores are interpreted solely for evaluative purposes and compared to their previous results across time. Some benefits to the WHOQOL-BREF is that it is short in duration to complete, easy to administer, it is free, and the scoring is generally straightforward. Another advantage of the WHOQOL-BREF is that it has been validated cross-culturally. Formal training is recommended for scoring and interpretation purposes. However, minimal training is required for administration of the tool. Studies that have implemented the WHOQOL-BREF assessment in their research have demonstrated excellent internal consistency, test-retest reliability, responsiveness and content validity, as well as good construct validity and adequate concurrent validity.